This week on the WriterCon podcast.
Well, I'm coming from a screenplay perspective, a screenwriting perspective. And so I always tell writers to read as many screenplays as they can. It's not something that we grow up reading, and we watch a lot of movies and think that we know how to write one. But if you read an actual screenplay, I always equate it to looking under the hood of a car at the engine, because we always see the car, we see it going, it looks great, but we don't really know how the writer put the words on the page to create that scene that we just saw.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Rene Gutteridge, best-selling author of over 30 novels and screenplays.
Hello, writers. It's starting to get warm outside, finally. So those of you who like to write outside, watching the twittering birds flutter past or whatever, this is your time. Is there anybody who really likes to write out? I personally prefer writing inside, but decades of raising children have trained me to be able to write just about anywhere, regardless of what's going on in the background. No excuses. Rene, how about you? Do you have a favorite place to write?
I like to write at my desk. I like to write at my coffee shop, but I actually like to write outside as well when the weather's right. But the problem is I can't see my screen. And so over the years, I have bought all of these contraptions trying to, they look ridiculous. I have people actually stop me at Starbucks and, we're like, what are you doing? Do you have a small animal in there? But I have this cool thing that you put your laptop in and it creates this shadow. It's not really, it's comfortable, but sometimes when that weather is just right, like that 72 degrees, man, it's so nice to get some fresh air. So I try it. Haven't found the perfect solution yet.
Yeah. How often in Oklahoma is it a perfect 72 degrees without wind?
1 week a year. You get 1 week somewhere between March and May, and that's it.
That's it. That's all you got. Yep.
And Jesse, I'm guessing that going outside to do sound recording and editing probably is not an option.
I recorded one podcast during the COVID lockdown outside. I've never do that again. There's just so much noise outside.
But we're going to do a podcast on the cruise in a few weeks, right? The WriterCon cruise.
Yeah, but that'll be inside. We're not going to be on the deck. Hopefully. Please tell me we're not going to be on the deck.
You're not going to be in the casino?
Yeah. Microphones flying everywhere.
The noise of the casino would be dramatic. The smoke would be unbearable, I think.
Yeah. I always want to gamble on those cruise ships, and I walk in there, I'm like, nope, can't breathe in here.
There's probably just saved you a couple $100. All right. Today, our guest is Andrea Nasfell. She's a screenwriter whose most recent credits include the Christmas movies, Every Other Holiday, which was on Lifetime, and Holiday for Heroes, which was on Hallmark. She is also the writer of theatrical faith-based comedies like The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, which was produced by Blumhouse, one of my son's favorite production companies, and Mom's Night Out, which came from Sony Affirm, and won a Dove Award for Inspirational Film of the Year. She's written several other movies, and I'm very anxious to talk to her after the news segment. But first, here's a brief word from our friend Kevin Tumlinson at Draft to Digital.
Hi, this is Kevin Tumlinson with Draft to Digital. Ebooks are amazing, but there's just something about having your book in print. That's why we built D2D Print. We take care of you with free layout templates and formatting, and we can convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound print cover automatically. Come check out D2D Print and all the cool tools we've built for you. Find out more at drafttodigital.com.
First big news story. There's a new imprint, or will be soon, at Hachette, which of course is one of the big five publishers. Hachette has partnered with Phenomenal Media to launch Phenomenal Media Books, which will, and I'm quoting from their press release, develop and acquire works from underrepresented voices across multiple genres, fiction and nonfiction, and for audiences of all ages, from children to adults, end quote. I'll point out that Phenomenal Media was founded by Mina Harris, who is the niece of our Vice President, Kamala Harris. So, writers, if you're working on something that might fit into that description, here's a new market for you. News story number 2, which, to be honest, is really news stories 2 through 4, but I've clumped them all together because they all involve Amazon. And I sometimes feel like we talk about Amazon. We didn't talk about Amazon at all on the last podcast, though. Did you guys notice? Not once.
It's been I think it's been a couple of episodes, actually. So,
Okay.
So,
now they've earned 3 stories that I'm compressing into a fake news story number 1. First, Audible, which of course is owned by Amazon, is lowering its prices. Not what you'd expect. Also, Amazon is redesigning their author pages, and Amazon has decided to close the Smile Charitable Foundation program they had going. Let's start with the audiobooks. As probably many of you already know, Amazon acquired Audible, which is now the #1 distributor of audiobooks, but the website ACX is where authors and publishers can upload their audiobooks for distribution to Audible. The point is, they're all connected to one another, and at a time when we're supposedly having record inflation and prices are going up, ACX has announced that they're actually reducing prices. They emailed creators a message which said, quote, "Starting today, Audible is reducing prices on titles, including ACX titles, across the site. While we cannot make projections on a title-by-title basis, we anticipate that these price reductions will lead to increased sales for titles overall," end quote. You can't help but think this may be, at least in part, driven by Spotify, which, as we reported a while back, recently acquired Findaway Voices, a competitor of ACX, another way to distribute ebooks, but one that lets you set your own price and one that offers better royalty than ACX does. Anyway, Spotify wanted to get active in audiobooks, so they bought Findaway. So now ACX, Audible, Amazon have a well-funded competitor. We'll note that although ACX says they're lowering prices, they're still not letting people set their own prices, and they still haven't changed their royalty rates. So, Jesse, do you think, they're saying sales will increase, but the question for me in this podcast is, do you think ACX authors are going to see more money from this move?
So if ACX is redoing prices, that means both audiobooks and ebooks are going to go down in price?
No, just audiobooks.
Just audiobooks? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, all the people I know who listen to audiobooks through Audible either do the thing where you buy the Amazon Unlimited, and so you also get some Audible credits to spend on books. Like, very few of them buy individual audiobooks. And so I don't know if this is going to change that or not, because you would think they would have to drop it pretty drastically to increase sales enough to make authors more money than they're making off it now.
Right. Well, that's the problem. I mean, if they decrease prices, yeah, they might sell more units, but authors could end up making less money, since, of course, they're only getting a small percentage of the whole thing. And go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think last time I checked, if you were gonna sell your audiobook just on Audible and Audible alone, I think you got 40%.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so
no, go ahead, finish your thought. And
I was just gonna say, like, let's say the book is $25, the audiobook, and you get 40% of that every time an audiobook is sold. If the book goes down to $19.99 or whatever the price decrease is going to be, because they haven't said what it's going to be. You know, I mean, if it increases sales, I think that's naturally good for authors. I'd rather ACX loosen up their royalty rates a little bit, which, and let's bring in my boy, B. Sands, as I call him, Brandon Sanderson. This might also be a response to his thing, not selling on Audible too. Like, they don't want authors pulling their stuff out of Audible. So we'll see. I mean, again, competition is always good. You know, that book merger didn't go through. I think this is, over time, will be better for authors. We just don't know enough details yet.
Okay, I hope you're right. Okay, second part of this big Amazon tripartite story. Amazon author pages are getting a redesign. As I bet most of you already know, Amazon allows the author of any book that's for sale on Amazon to create an author page where you can post your bio and pictures and whatnot. Encourage people to follow you so that they know when new books are realized. It's a really nice thing. But in the past, you've been able to do more with it than you can now. They've redesigned the author pages. I think Jesse can show you a comparison of the way it was and the way it is now. It does look cleaner now, but they've eliminated the ability of authors to include supplementary media. In other words, you used to be able to upload like a book video or a TikTok video or something that, you know, relates to, or an interview that you did on a podcast, all kinds of promotional things. But now, at least in the US-based Amazon store, you can't do that anymore. Rene, what are they trying to do? Take all the fun out of this, or?
Of course. No, I mean, I wouldn't have a clue what the reason. I mean, either one person ruined it for all of us, right? Like they uploaded something inappropriate. Now none of us can have it. Or I don't know, maybe it just takes up too much space. You know, I don't know. I couldn't imagine why. Maybe it looks too cluttered. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. Hopefully Amazon's doing a whole site decluttering thing, because that would be nice, because there's been many articles written about how shopping on Amazon is a horrible experience, and it could be so much better and cleaner. And so maybe Amazon's doing that, or maybe they've run the numbers and no one ever actually looks at these pages. So why have all these extra things?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not the latter, and if it is, please don't tell me, because that would be too depressing. But
listen, I look at every
author's
author page on Amazon just to make sure, you know, check things. So just know I've seen your page.
I've followed authors from their author pages before, haven't you guys?
Yeah, the ones I'm really, really interested in that I'd like, you know, for sure. I'm an eclectic reader, so I don't always read everything that every author puts out, but there are certain ones that I would like to know when their next book comes out.
Well, plus in the past, I mean, Amazon always encourages authors to be more involved, or publishers to be more involved in the promotion. You know, they got that huge Amazon ad program now that's almost become a pay to play. You know, if you're not advertising your books, they're not going to sell. And now they're taking away, I guess it's an equalizing function, but why should we equalize it? You know, let people who are working the promotion harder benefit from it. I just don't understand why they would take all that stuff down.
Yeah.
All right. Third part of this story, Amazon has closed the Smile program. Some of you probably see the word smile after the dot, but before Amazon.com, and that's because you, like I, had subscribed to the Smile program, by which Amazon agreed to donate a small percent. It was like 0.5% of whatever you've spent on your purchases to the charity of your choice. Like I was having, I'm sure, what's a small amount? Well, I don't know. I shop a lot, actually. But mine was going to the Writers Colony at Derry Hollow, where a place I love, where I've had a lot of writing conferences, and they support writers. And I know it said on the website they've distributed $500 million in donations, but now they're ending it. Apparently, I don't know why they thought there were more effective ways to donate money to charity, or
That's giving
Anybody?
them
I'll give you
that's
three.
giving them too much credit, I assume. I imagine it was just a hassle
So?
on their part, and
It's
they're
the hassle. I mean,
Yeah.
why play the middleman when you can just get out?
Well,
Yeah,
sadly,
that's too bad, though. I think that was a good program.
it was a good
Yeah.
program. Considering how
do
much I shopped on
too.
Amazon, I felt like at least I was doing something good, and now I don't feel like I'm doing something good at all. So thanks, Amazon. You've ruined the fun I ever got from shopping there.
Now Justin's gonna have to go out and earn his goods somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm buying all things on Costco.com now. So I hope you're happy, Amazon.
No.
No,
All right.
my house isn't big enough for that. So
Hey, Rene, would you please introduce our interview guest?
I would love to. Today, our guest is Andrea Nasfell, and I just have to say, I'm so excited to have her here. She's a longtime friend, a true inspiration to me, one of the funniest writers that I know of, and has such a great sense of humor on the page. And she actually had years ago acquired one of my novels. That acquired the option to it, Boo, and we are still hoping that gets made. But we've walked the long road together in this profession, and I think everybody will really enjoy getting to know her. Please welcome Andrea Nasfell.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Okay, traditional first question. If you could offer writers out there one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, I'm coming from a screenplay perspective, a screenwriting perspective. And
Right.
so I always tell writers to read as many screenplays as they can. It's not something that we grow up reading, and we watch a lot of movies and think that we know how to write one. But if you read an actual screenplay, I always equate it to looking under the hood of a car at the engine, because we always see the car, we see it going, it looks great, but we don't really know how the writer put the words on the page to create that scene that we just saw. And so screenwriting is kind of a language of its own, and it's different from writing fiction. And so I just encourage people, if you like a movie, try to find a screenplay. Almost anything recently, you can Google name of movie screenplay PDF and you'll find it, especially if it's an award contender. Those are always posted. So I always recommend reading lots of screenplays.
That's good, Andrea. Back when I first started getting interested in it in my teens, there was like at the back of magazines, you could order screenplays to read and they would send them to you. And that's how I got started. Eventually the library started carrying them too, which is where I found them. Now it's so much easier. So yeah.
So much easier now. Yeah, I used to have to find them in books, like in book form. They would sometimes publish a specific screenplay, but yeah, it was hard to find.
Yeah, they were. So no excuses, everybody. Easy.
That's right.
Now. Okay, so what got you interested in writing movies in the first place? Like what drew you to that specific art form?
Well, I always thought I would be a writer, and I read a lot of books. I wrote a lot of fiction and short stories, and even I tried to write a novel when I was like 12. So, I always thought that I would be a writer, but it was kind of in high school that I fell in love with movies, and there was just a point of revelation where it's like, wait, that comes from somewhere. Someone has to write that, before anyone can shoot it. And so, I did exactly what you're saying. I went to the library and I found a copy of Sid Field's screenplay. It was like one of the only books out at the time, and just read it cover to cover. And in high school, tried to, figure out, how do I do this? How do you put this together? So I think just the combination of loving both the performance. I did a little bit of acting, maybe up until college, until I realized, no, that's not going to be my thing. But just combining all of those interests into one genre of movies. I think that's how I came to it.
Well, fun. Well, so of course, your first piece of advice is to read the scripts. Learn the language, because it is its own language, like you said. But where did you go from there? How did you learn to write these beasts?
So, I mean, yes, just teaching myself for starters. And then it wasn't something I realized I could study in college, but I did go to college for like media comm studies. And so I just tried to tailor that in whatever way I could, like taking creative writing classes, taking independent studies where I did screenplays. And then I did a semester in LA where I was interning at a production company at Warner Brothers. And so I was reading a lot of screenplays there. That's mostly what they have you do, is write coverage on things. And yeah, and then I ended up taking a program called Act One, which was at the time, it was a month-long program out here in LA. So I was here in LA for a month, just all day long, learning from people who are working in the business, coming in and lecturing about every kind of genre, it just soaking in all that information and then just trying it. And I think the thing that was particularly good about Act One for me is that they gave me a mentor, because I was doing all this on my own. I was trying it. I was following Sid Field. I was, reading the books and stuff. But until someone who's working in the business reads your stuff and says, yes, you're doing this right, or, like to have someone specifically read my work and give me feedback. I had entered contests and, gotten like a little paragraph back or something like that. But to have someone actually sit down with you and say, these are your strengths, this is what's working, these are things, you're not doing right. That was extremely valuable. So I think just from there is I kind of took off.
I get the impression from talking to Rene and looking at your distinguished resume that sometimes you're developing original ideas and sometimes you're working on assignment. What difference does that make, or how does that affect your writing process?
Well, the best way to get paid in Hollywood is to write on assignment. I'll say that. Right. So it used to be, and I'll give away my age a little bit, but when I was doing my internship, it was kind of the golden age of the spec script. It was the mid 90s. And there were, spec scripts that were selling for $1 million, and everyone was writing a spec, and everyone in Hollywood, the development offices were all reading original new material and acquiring them. And then just through the process of, economics, I guess, studios started to become less interested in spending money and taking a risk on original ideas, and much wanting to kind of shore up their investments in these big budget movies by having books or IP, some kind of other thing behind it, or they're picking ideas themselves that they know will sell instead of waiting for those specs to come in and saying, yeah, this is it. They say, we want to have a movie about whatever it is. And then they bring in writers to pitch their take on that idea. And so you always have to write specs when you're starting out, because that's how you get hired to write an assignment, is they read those as a sample. But what I see more and more is just that most everything I do now, I'll say everything I do now is on assignment. And that's either because I'm reading material and adapting it, or someone is saying, we need a Christmas movie and we want it to star, this is one of my assignments, where we want a Christmas movie and it needs to star Della Reese. Because they had it was a network that had just acquired all the back episodes of Touched by an Angel. And so they wanted also a Christmas movie that she was in. And so I was like, okay. And so I come in and I pitch, here's the Christmas movie and here's Della's character. And I was hired to write that. But those are the things that a producer will give you. It's like, they know what they're looking for. You're kind of creating a product for them. And so, so they're giving you, these are the things we know will work for us. Or this is the kind of, I've written for Hallmark, and so they have things that they know actually work, well for them. They have a if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. And so they can kind of give you the parameters and then you work within those parameters. So the process is different because someone's guiding you along all the way. Obviously with a spec, you're making all of your own decisions, but you're also taking a big risk on those decisions. The nice thing about an assignment is that the producer wants this project. They've already optioned the book, or they already know that they need a Christmas movie to fill this time slot on their network. And so because of that, it's easier to feel assured in your choices that, okay, I know that these things are right and that this is going to go forward. It's more likely to go forward. and so then from there, you're just oftentimes working with someone who can give you feedback, and you can say, I was thinking that the character might do these kinds of things. And then they can say, we love that, or you don't like that. And it just, what it helps with is narrowing all the options, because you can go a million directions with a story. And so when you have that producer guiding you, they know what they want, and it helps you kind of craft what it is that they're looking for.
Well, I happen to know that you've also worked on novels. And speak a little bit into, in your experience, the difference, which I happen to know is somewhat vast. But how did you feel? I went from screenwriting to novels back to screenwriting. You went from screenwriting. I guess you dabbled in novels, like you said, in your
right.
years, and then you went into screenwriting, and then back into fiction writing. I don't actually know how far you went into that, but speak a little bit into your experience about the difference and which one you prefer, I guess.
Well, obviously, I feel a lot more comfortable in screenwriting because I just have a lot more experience and more confidence there. I have not yet published anything that I've written fiction-wise. I'm still working. What happens is I go down a road for a long time, and then I need to make money, and so then I'll take a screenwriting assignment, and then I come back to it, and I have to figure out where I am. I'm like 90,000 words into what's probably will be about 100,000 words, so I'm very close to the end. But it's interesting. It's challenging. I think the main difference is that is interiority. That's what it comes down to, because in a screenplay, you're not allowed to write anyone's thoughts because they're written on the page, but they'll never make it through to the script unless you put it in there some other way, dialogue, or something. Like someone's thinking about something. It's just a shot of them looking out, over the ocean, and you don't know what they're thinking about or remembering. So, but in fiction, you must include those things. It's being inside the character's head is a part of what you experience. And so, it was hard to remind myself, like I can't just write what's happening, what we're seeing and hearing. I have to get inside the characters' heads. And I feel like I got it. But it took a while, and it took a lot of pages and figuring it out. We have yet to see how successessul that was, but it's a project that I love, and so I keep coming back to it. I started it as as a pilot, and I wrote a pilot and a second episode of what would have been kind of like an 8 to 10 episode series, and then I realized this is really expensive, and I haven't been a showrunner. I've done a lot of features, but it's interesting how specific in film and television it is to write film and television. They're two different things. And so in order to keep control over my own series, I realized that if there was IP under it, if it was based on a book, then I would have the option of creating the entire story instead of coming up with an idea where a new showrunner comes on and takes it over, which is what would have happened. So those were my motivations. And I just feel like in the end, this is probably a better book than a screenplay, than a series. I also teach. And so that's one thing that I talk to my students a lot about is they'll come up with a really great idea. And then sometimes I'll say, this is a really great idea, but this is not a feature film. This is a TV series, or this is a play, or this is a book. And it just has to do with what their idea is and what the strengths of those different formats are, and what they're trying to accomplish. So when someone comes in with an idea that has a very clear beginning, middle, end, and the end is strong, you've got a feature. If you come in with a whole bunch of characters and a really great situation and no ending, you have a TV series. And then if that either one of those situations are very contained, probably not going out of just a few settings, and it's more about the philosophy of the idea or whatever, then you probably have a play. That's how I kind of break it down for people. It's sometimes hard to change to change directions, but sometimes you just need to do what's best for the idea.
I got a feeling you're going to be finishing that novel, and then it can be made into a movie, and you have gone completely full circle. What must that be like to see, whether it's from a book or an original screenplay, to see these stories and people you created, and whoosh, there they are up on the big screen? What's that like?
It's very cool. It's interesting. You have a different experience on all different films, but I do remember one movie where there was a very particular house, and it was a Christmas movie, and so the house was supposed to be a little bit reminiscent of the old Granville house from It's a Wonderful Life, and so when they brought me to set, they had already been filming for a while, and they drove me up to set, and we like kind of parked right in front of it. And I remember just sitting there thinking, oh, that's it. Like that was all in my head. And like, there it is in person. That's the place. They had gotten it so right. And then sometimes you're like, well, that wasn't what I pictured at all. because filmmaking is such a team sport, everyone kind of puts their own spin on it when they come in. And so a director will direct something completely differently than you might have imagined, or they might cast it perfectly, or they might cast like, that wasn't what I was picturing. And so it's very nerve-wracking actually to watch something for the first time after you've written it, because it all really existed there so vividly in your head. And then to see someone else's interpretation of it. I usually have to watch it twice before I can decide how I feel about it. Because the first one, you're just kind of sitting there like, is it going to be okay? Am I going to like it? Did it turn out all right? Did everything I was trying to communicate actually work and come through? And sometimes you just don't know until, they've put it all together. And even editing, they always say that's the final draft. And so they'll move stuff around, they'll cut things. I've had movies where like one movie where almost an entire subplot got cut out because of an actor issue. And so then like a bunch of things didn't make sense anymore because the way that the plot and subplot were working together. And so you just have to go, well, you have to release your child into the world and just let other people take care of it. And sometimes that's works out better than others. But yeah, you have to
never grow up the way you think they will,
no.
right? So
they don't.
Oh. Well, Andrea, thank you for imparting your wisdom on us. It's kind of a world that not many people get to get a glimpse behind. And it's certainly very different than probably what most of our writers are used to working in. So it's fun to hear what you get to experience and giving us a little bit of a hint of what that life is like. I know you've been at it for a long time, so
yeah.
Congratulations on all your success, and hopefully you and I will get our movie made one day.
I know.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. So
it really has.
Yeah,
we're not giving up. We're not giving
up. So anyway, well, thanks again, Andrea, and appreciate you.
Thank you, Andrea.
And
thank you.
Next time.
It was nice talking with you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Good job, Andrea. And I'm going to stop the recording here.
I mentioned last time that I have a new novel coming out, and guess what? It's still coming out. Releases on March 14, but you can pre-order The Florentine Poet today. As I've mentioned before, this is a change of pace novel for me, but one I hope you will enjoy. People are calling it The Princess Bride meets The Alchemist, which I take to mean it's fun, but maybe has something going on with it too. At any rate, if you're thinking poetry, I'm not reading that, or Renaissance Italy, that sounds really boring. I can promise you it's not. Whether you like it or dislike it, it is definitely not boring. Here's an early review from Dreams of Manderley, which is an Intergram book review place. They wrote, how could I not quote this? Quote, "Nothing short of brilliant. This is the author's love letter to poetry, words, and writing. It is also a tribute to all of those who helped us along the way. and the lessons they teach us, end quote. When I was reading this, I thought, is this just too, full of yourself to put in a review quote from one of your own books? And I decided, by gosh, you spent years writing that thing. You just go for it. So that's what I did.
Yes. Good job.
My pal Rene is also busy writing. Just finished up a screenplay on the heels of last year's hit award-winning film Family Camp. Just won a big award from Movie Guide, right, Rene?
Yes, it did. It's exciting.
For more information about Rene, go to renegutteridge.com or check her out on social media. She is also a key player at Writing Momentum. Until next time, keep writing, and remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.